Len Edgerly. I'm at the Ding Darling Wildlife Refuge on Sanibel in Florida. I just heard a great talk by the guy behind me here, Charles Sobczak, who is a conservationist who lives on Sanibel and clearly has all kinds of knowledge about the wildlife and just what Sanibel is all about. His topic today was surviving the storms, hurricanes, humans, and wildlife. And of course, he's talking about Hurricane Ian, which hit Sanibel on September 28th, 2022. And he talked about wildlife. The birds have largely recovered. The alligators did fine because they can be in salt water for a while. The bunny rabbits were pretty well wiped out. The iguanas survived. It was very interesting about that. But Charlie could be a comedian in addition to a conservationist. He just had some very funny bits in his talk and also some extremely useful information. If he's signing books behind me here, so if he gets a break, maybe I'll be able to get him to talk to us briefly. But the takeaway for me was he gave 4 rules to keep in mind. And rule number 1 is beware of any hurricane forecast. And what he's talking about there is that we were up in Boston when Hurricane Ian was approaching, and it said it's going to Tampa. So we thought, well, Sanibel is not in the direct line. And then at the last minute, just took a right and went straight at Sanibel with over 150-mile-an-hour winds, Category 5 storm. Our house had the roof blown off and a great deal of damage, which we're finally just getting over. So, and one of the things there is that hurricanes now can intensify so quickly and they can change direction. So beware the forecast. That makes a lot of sense. And then rule number 2 was when in doubt, always evacuate. One of his humorous but informative bits, he showed a garbage truck on a road, and then he showed a guy standing in the middle of a road. And he said, I'll tell you what this is about. Toward the end of his talk, he said that for a major hurricane, the forecast, when you see the forecast is coming toward you of a hurricane, you have as much time as it takes to drive a garbage truck from Atlanta down to Florida. So if you want to just, take your time, you're like the guy standing on the road in Florida waiting for the garbage truck to come over and run over him. And he shows a guy who's been run over by a garbage truck. That was very clever and something I'm not going to forget. Rule number 3, harden the buildings. And that's something Darlene and I have been doing. We're putting something called hardy board up on the exterior of our house. We're installing hurricane glass. We've already got breakaway walls and vents. And he showed a picture of a house in Fort Myers Beach. And all around it, there's nothing but rubble. But this house had been built to protect against a storm, and it survived. So, that's what I hope will happen to our house, because one of the things he said is statistically, the next big hurricane will hit us before the end of 2025, before the end of next year. That's not good news, I'll say that. And his last rule, rule number 4, I think, vote climate. Vote for people that are interested in reducing greenhouse gas. It's not really something to argue about anymore. One of the effective things he said was, look at the insurance adjusters all over the world who are thinking, what happens if a Category 5, now they're even talking about adding a Category 6, hits Miami. Well, it just wipes out the insurance industry and the ability to even provide insurance for these storms. That's not an ideological issue or battle. These are people who are studying the facts and making decisions about what to charge with insurance premiums. Ours have doubled twice since the storm. So yeah, vote climate. And what a great talk. His humor was confident, perfectly timed, and if this conservation gig gets old, I could see he could do his own show. And it's Charlie Sobczak, and did a great job here at the Ding Darling Wildlife Center on Sanibel. So I'll see if maybe I can get him to just maybe tell us a few climate jokes. So you have a nice combination I've never seen before of knowledge about conservation and humor.
Yes.
And how does that work? Were you a comedian who became a conservationist, or the other way around?
Oh, that's a great question. The answer to your question is, when I first started doing these lectures, I learned that if I just threw in a little levity, I call it eco-tainment.
Eco-tainment.
Yes.
I've never heard that term either.
Well, I kind of coined it.
Yeah.
Eco-tainment is when we're talking about ecology, environments, climate change. I combine it with humor because I've learned that if you lighten it up,
Yeah.
if you make it a little bit funny, a little bit silly, like the pink flamingos,
Yeah.
people open up. They don't feel like you're preaching at them. They don't feel like you're pedantic, like I know this and you don't,
Yeah.
etc. So what I find interesting is if I throw in the humor, be it the garbage truck
Yeah.
or all the other stuff, I find that people are much more engaged and they just they have more fun.
Well, and maybe their minds are more open to receive the information because they're not in kind of a crouch against being preached at.
Right. And you notice throughout the entire lecture, I had one graph.
Yeah.
Well, one big graph. And that was it.
Yeah.
Because graphs are boring. Yeah, I
Amen.
mean, they're wonderful, but they're they prove a point, but intrinsically they're boring. What I find far more interesting is the humor in all.
Yeah.
Like the collision between
Talk about the garbage truck, because early in your talk we see a slide of a garbage truck and then a slide of a guy standing in the road, and you say this will be explained. What's
Yes.
the joke? What's the gag?
The joke is that the garbage truck is slowly working its way south from Atlanta with a broken transmission, and you're dumb enough to stand in that highway for 2 days until it runs you over. That's what it's like being killed by an approaching hurricane.
Because you get that much warning.
Correct.
You've got 2 days to get out
Get
of the
out of
road
town.
before the garbage truck,
Evacuate. You don't have to go to Turku, Finland.
which is what you did.
Well, by accident.
Yeah,
We,
yeah.
we had no idea the storm was coming.
Yeah.
We were just on. We did not rush home, though. There was no reason to go home. There was
Yeah.
no causeway.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was that simple. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad you saw the
yeah.
kind of, it's a unique combination.
Well, and it's important because, all right, talk about the last rule. What's rule number 4, if I counted them right?
Voting climate.
Okay, and to make people be ready to do that, and you open up their minds, then maybe they vote.
Well, they got to think about the repercussions of not dealing with climate change. It's what's going to happen. Insurance rates are going to eventually climb to the point of being untenable.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't. Now, this poor gal with her little office is now, she's dropping her insurance because she's now at $24,000 a year for 3 policies.
Wow.
That's $2,000. That's more than her lease. She pays more to insure her property than the lease. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's only going to get worse. And if we ignore it for 4 more years or don't try and start to deal with it, it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, and the other thing that I could see a relationship, one of your rules was to strengthen the buildings. So if you do, that's what we're doing. Our insurance doubled twice. We're in the dunes, and it's now like $60,000 a year. I said, let's just put hardy board in. Let's put hurricane glass, because if I do that and there's a hurricane, maybe there's much less damage.
We had none upstairs. We had all impact glass. We
Yeah.
had metal roof. Luckily, nothing got loose or blew
Right.
apart. So, yes, hardening your structure is going to become mandatory anyway,
Yeah.
because the insurance companies are going to demand it.
Oh,
It's
that's
coming.
right. Yeah.
It's coming.
That's good.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.